Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today it's a vinyl shootout. It's a little bit different because we're going to get a true comparison of a 33 RPM versus a 2x45. We're going to do it through the America self-titled first record. The Rhino Reserve of that came out in October of 2025. And it's mastered by Matt Luthans at the Mastering Lab in Salina, Kansas, using Doug Sax's all-tube equipment. And it sounded gorgeous. The one caveat is you have to turn it up some because the cuts on these aren't quite as hot because of it being that type of equipment for cutting. But you certainly are benefited when you turn it up a few dB and that warmth and richness of the cut really flows into you. And now we have from Acoustic Sounds celebrating their 40th anniversary and releasing the series with Rhino, we have the same album, 2x45 versus 33. Same mastering engineer, same cutting equipment, same master tape, just cut across four sides on two LPs. So we're going to try to answer the question, does it make a difference? That's coming up next on the Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion Vinyl Shootout. So it's pretty rare that you get the opportunity to really do an apples to apples comparison where you know the same source tape was used, the same mastering engineer was used, doing it around the same time on the same equipment. And that's exactly what happened in this case because Rhino was issuing this America self-titled through its Rhino Reserve series, and this 40th anniversary agreement with Chad and Acoustic Sounds was happening for them to release it on a 2LP 45 RPM format. So we really got a chance to put to the test the time-honored question, does doing it at 45 RPM make a difference? And you'll see the numbers and what they impact in terms of the statistics. But from an impression standpoint, I can say this for sure. Both of them are the versions. In other words, they really are the best sounding that there are of this album. Make no mistake. The place where I did see a difference in the dynamics was on the 45 RPM. It was able to extend a bit more in the dynamic range. I literally saw it in the meters, and I'm going to show you an example of that and show you which one was playing at this each time, so you can see that basically the reach of the 45 was just a tad more, getting the lights a little bit further along than it was on the 33. But not a lot, but it was noticeable, but not such that you didn't enjoy at all the 33. The 33 is stellar. And I would say if you have any problem with or affinity against the use of 45 RPM and changing records, the 33 is still a huge, solid winner. But if you want to show off your system, if you want to hear a little bit more warmth in the bass and the mid bass, and you want to get that full dynamic range, the 45 RPM on 2LP squeaks out just that little bit of extra that you would hope that you would get. So for me, it really did kind of prove the theory in that regard. And it's a very enjoyable listen. Comparing the two, one thing I do notice is they both in some way have some song-to-song variations in the dBs. And doing volume matching was interesting in that regard. but you don't notice it if you just play the album. It's something that I would notice as I'm making these very anal comparisons, I might say myself. But really you won't notice it at all. But it's not like the songs are delivered at the exact same decibel levels. There are some subtle differences between them. But all told, when you do the total analysis, you're going to get just that bit more in punch, in warmth, and in dynamics with the 45 RPM.
Suppose you have missed them. Oh, I almost forgot to ask, did you hear of my enlistment? Funny, I've been there. Funny, I've been there. We ain't had no time to drink that beer. Fear. 'Cause I understand the name of a Sandman. He flies the sky like an eagle in the eye of a hurricane that's abandoned. A hurricane that's abandoned. A man that goes by the name of the Sandman. That goes by the name of the Sandman. Eye of a hurricane that's abandoned. I understand you've been running from the man that goes by. Been running from the man that goes by the name of the Sandman. Eye of a hurricane that's abandoned. I understand you've been running from. I understand you've been running from the man. Then he flies the sky like an eagle in the eye of a hurricane that's abandoned.
The nature of audio comparisons is that the results presented in this video are fully subjective. They are based on my equipment in my listening room using my hearing capability. Therefore, your results may be different. My effort here is to provide you the relative difference of audio characteristics across various pressings. As I had done these comparisons in the previous video, I'm really going to zoom in on the differences between the Rhino Reserve reissue and the Analogue Productions 2x45 here. And you can see, obviously, there's a cost difference between the two, about literally almost double the price, from $32 to $65 for the 2x45 LP. Now, what's interesting is the 2x45 has more room for the groove, obviously, and so Matt could cut that hotter, and you see it in the fact that it is actually a bit louder even than the original. The variation there, 1 to 2 dB, just like in the Rhino Reserve, it was -2 to 3. There was a 1 dB variances between songs that was similar there, but the point is, if you had the 33 and couldn't get enough out of it, then this would be rectified with the 2x45 for sure. They both had about the same quietness of vinyl, very, very quiet with 9s. Their sound signatures and where the differences are here is it seemed like you could get a little more of the bass, mid-bass, and mid-range out of the 2x45 than the Rhino Reserve. The Rhino Reserve is extremely good in this, very strong, and on its own is easily the winner. That's not the issue. It's when you sit down and compare the two as closely as I do that you pick up that small deviation, that small bit of extra warmth that you get, that small bit of extra kick drum feel that comes through. So again, it's relatively small, but it's there. Treble's about the same. And then when we get into the dynamics and we get into soundstage imaging and voices, again, just a little more richness, a little more dynamic range, as I showed on my meters, that you can see coming through the 2x45. It opens up a little bit more imaging on it, and the voices are just a little bit more precise in their delivery. you end up with this bottom line on this new one being a really, really strong number, 9.92, 9.79 when the vinyl quietness versus a 9.5 and a 9.43. Not a huge difference, but on the cost side, it's twice the cost. A little better value for your dollar in ratio. But like I said, you've got to make a call on what you're looking for here. They both are stellar representations of this record, and I think that's what we want to see from these particular types of releases. As far as the You Might Like It If, again, taking the Rhino Reserve, comparing it to the Analogue Productions 2x45, again, both being cut on the same system, let's talk about what's different in the 2x45. Much like the Rhino Reserve, it uses the same mastering engineering equipment, although this one is able to be cut louder given the room you have for a 45 RPM cut, and the dynamic range is even better than the Rhino Reserve, which was very strong. While this version seems louder, it does have variation song to songs in dB compared to the Rhino Reserve. It is not problematic and is only really evident when you're doing a thing like I did with direct one-to-one comparisons. The power need isn't here for volume as much as it was in the Rhino, but it is needed for that enhanced dynamic range, which could cause clipping if your amplification is lacking, because that dynamic range is something else. And as I said before, the job that Matt Luthens is doing on these Rhino Reserves is stellar. And again, if you have the volume to give them, because these cuts being on 33, they're longer cuts, and he can't, cut it quite as hot without causing other issues. If you can get the delivery of clean volume there, those are going to be the best. But as we see here, the 45 brings a little more ability on the volume side where you don't need to pump it up quite as high to get the same / better results from this. Great job by Matt Luthens on this record all around. So this is a place where numbers don't always give you exactly the feel of the difference. The statistics are there. Now, you can get the feel and the numbers between the 2x45 Analogue Productions versus the Rhino Reserve 33. But let's go back and look at those OGs. They have pretty strong numbers as well. But there's a couple of areas there to consider. One, surface noise. Older records are going to have probably more noise in general, and particularly if they were played and loved. And they also, in this case, are going to have just a touch of a different sound in the brightness. Not quite as accurate. And they're very strong OGs, and if it's an album you just kind of listen to and don't care much, they're perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with those at all. But if you're moving into, I want to really hear an audiophile version of this and how it can feel as well as sound, now you're into these new reissues. And again, the 33 Rhino Reserve is a solid buy. $32, just about exactly half the cost of the Analogue Productions. And I would say for most people, it'll fit the bill, plus it's a 1 LP solution. But if you really want to hear just that little bit more and the warmth that can be delivered with the precision, and really sit back and enjoy it, don't mind getting up to flip it a few times, this new one is a keeper. I'm going to keep both of those, the most recent ones, and I'm going to keep my OG promo because it's unique and it doesn't have a horse with no name on it, but the rest of them doesn't really matter. So you make the call. There's really not a bad decision to be made amongst all three of those, the OG, the Rhino Reserve, or the new 2x45. Depends on what you think of the album, what you're looking for, and what kind of sound really is your taste, especially if this is a record that you really, really like and will replay like I will. Now you have these versions that really give it just that additional touch of magic and envelopment of listening, engagement of listening, more than the OG does. The OG is kind of for a casual listen. But these new ones, they really do get you. And that feeling is visceral. So, viva la différence, as I often say, you make the choice. So that's it for this vinyl shootout. Thanks for joining me today. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so by clicking on the bell below. And a thumbs up or like is always appreciated, as are your comments. I'm coming up on 6,000 subscribers, so I will be having a show very soon celebrating that with some freebies for you, so stay tuned. I also have a membership available for $4.99 a month, which will bring you a daily audio diet, a new video every single day, and the Audio Quest every Monday night, 6:30 p.m. Central with Novice Nick, and Chasing Better Sound with Louis V. Check for our next scheduled get-together. So as always, thanks for watching the Safe and Sound Texas audio excursion. Take care, everybody.